I think we'll open the Water Sewer Department meeting of March 9th, 2021, and I think we'll begin with Superintendent Updates, please.
All right, very good. Hello, everybody. I'm going to touch on a few things, try and go through this pretty quick. We had some discussion about the existing Well 4 and Well 5, and speaking with our well specialist, we were talking about replacement pumps and possible cleanings and stuff that we could work in before we get into the summer months, knowing that replacement wells 5A and 6A are still a little ways away. We had spoke with it was kind of shocking. The motor and pump assembly that we have at both Well 4 and Well 5 are made by Gould Manufacturing. They are actually out of Texas. To replace either one of those right now, looking at a 15 to 20 week lead time based on problems that they had down there with the weather. And so we're going to go with a different brand, and it will work with our existing situation that we have based on our VFD and our power supplies there. Well 4, we're going to go with a different design than what's originally there. Instead of a single stage, we're going to go for a two-stage pump. So we have the ability, most likely, to run a little bit higher in our performance curve, so we can get a little bit more water out of that. We still obviously wouldn't exceed our permitted amount from DEP, but it would give us a little extra and take some burden off of the guys working at the treatment facility the way it is right now. So we have an order in for the replacement pump at Well 4. When that comes in, it's going to be stored at the facility for the gentleman who does our cleaning. It's going to be shipped directly to them at that time. Anticipating a fairly decent lead on that, we may jump right into a quick cleaning and installation at Well 4 so that we can get that extra 100, 200 gallons a minute out of that well and ease the burden a little bit on our aging Well 5 and 6. We also spoke with the same person about having a submersible pump and some piping on consignment for Well 5, knowing that there was a slight vibration that has been a problem there for some time now. We want to make sure that we're planning ahead. Hopefully these are all precautionary measures, but they have a pump and piping that they feel would work to provide us water from that existing location, knowing that 5A and 6A are a little further out than we had hoped. I don't know if anybody had any questions about that.
What is the summary on the vibration of the pump at number 5?
Well, the pump
are we just going to limp along till it gets replaced? Or, I mean, wasn't that part of the upgrade?
You are correct. That pump was changed, and a low-head pump was installed. The vibration developed after that pump was installed. There was some delay in getting a technician out to that site from the contractor or from the company. I'm not sure where the delay started, but it did happen. They came out. They were able to get it to balance far better than what it was originally with the vibration. Unfortunately, vibrations, if they go away, it's usually even more of a problem. But to take that out of the ground, do any type of maintenance and service to it and get it back in the ground, it just doesn't seem wise to go with that action, not knowing exactly where the vibration is being caused by. It could be one item. It could be a quick, simple, pull it out, drop a spider barren in, and be gone. The potential is always there that you could see other items were damaged because of the vibration. It's kind of, we're going to leave it alone for now. Hopefully, again, like you said, let it limp along. We're still producing water. And in the event that something does happen, we have a plan in place, as a precautionary measure, so that, if there is a delay in getting parts, if that one could be repaired, or, ordering a new pump, that's just one thing that we definitely don't want to get into with that much of a lead time, knowing the stress that the companies are having now trying to catch up after a month being down.
Sure. It's just tough knowing that the thing is never operated properly.
I am right there with you.
Does that, in my contractor mentality, Frank, if that, let's say that pump were, well balanced and, performing properly, would that, be able to be swapped out to another well, or is that, just well 5 specific, and once, we'll call it 5A comes up and replaces well 5, is that pump in well 5 obsolete and no longer needed?
I don't have the exact answer on that. My assumption would be that it was designed specifically to fit that existing antiquated location. Tara might be able to give a little bit more insight on that. I don't believe it would be able to be used at 5A. I could be wrong, but I'd have to defer to Tara on that one. I'm not sure.
Or even number 4, you know what I mean? If it, I don't know, they're probably not universal, but could it be, you know what I mean? Does it have any other value? Like, should we consider, long-term, you know, repair or somehow to make it do what it's supposed to do?
So I can jump.
Go ahead, Tara.
So the vibration that we're seeing here is more of a warranty issue, and the contractor is willing to fix it. However, the duration for that fix is at least a week, if not longer, and we're not willing to be down with number 5 for that long at this point. So the decision was made to leave it in place, run it as it is, and if there's an issue, we do have the pump on consignment. And if there is an issue, we're working right now with the contractor that, you know, that's the option, that if it goes down, it goes down, and it's not been functioning for the last 6+ months. So to answer your question on the pump itself, it is designed for 5. We would be going with more of a submersible pump, like similar to 4, for the replacement pumps, not what we have out there for 5 and 6. So it's I think we're talking about a couple $1,000 here, maybe a little bit more than that for the pump itself. But you know, the hope that, well, the goal is to really just not pull it right now based on the timing of where we're at. But the assumptions are that a lower bowl assembly needs to be adjusted, and it could take up to 1.5 to 2 weeks for that.
Gotcha. So it has no useful life after 5A comes up and is 100% online, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, you're going to be abandoning 5. When 5A goes online, you have to abandon the existing 5. So, and there's no swapping of pumps for that.
Okay. Well, then I guess you've got the right plan in place to limp along, because 5A is not imminent, but it's sooner rather than later.
Yeah, we just didn't feel comfortable pulling it, not knowing the extent of the work that would have to be done. You know, best case scenario, we're looking at maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, you know, and then there's always that worst case scenario. And if it was a complete replacement that was necessary, we didn't feel that was a great option for us right now, especially knowing it is basically going to go away at some point, whether it be 6 months or 8 months from now.
Come on, Frank, you don't want to pull it and have the screen collapse and the bearings fall in the hole and clog everything up and Mr. Murphy show up. Come on, man.
I can see that you're reading between the lines. Very good.
Where's your sense of adventure?
I've lost some of them.
I'll buy the box of Joe to pull the overnight with you. We got Wiggins on that one. Good call. I'm gonna stop trying to reuse old stuff that is design specific and keep on trucking, Frank, please.
Very good. I'm glad that everybody feels the same way about that. Let's Derek and myself sleep a little better at night, knowing that we actually have a contingency plan if something doesn't go our way. But, and we'll jump over to flow testing. We continue to get calls every week or every other week for companies that have got our letter and are now scheduling the smaller tips and flow tests with our department. Water quality has been noted at a few of those locations. Typically, they would have unfortunately shut the system down with some color in there. So with our guys being on site monitoring and gauging the usage, we've made sure that every facility that's been flushed so far has been shut down. Once it's clean, that'll it's an added benefit for the town, obviously, with us being out there, making sure that the system is handled correctly. We also know the water that's being flowed, so we can use that against our unaccounted for water. And there's a benefit long term as far as with these fire lines being flowed and shut down once they're clean to the owner of the property, where they may not see an extra charge for a failed backflow if there happens to be some debris or something that could get stuck in it from closing it while it still has some color. We do have our first full fire hydrant flow test scheduled for Thursday, March 18th at 10 a.m. This is for 184 Mansfield Ave. They'll actually be flowing a hydrant directly across the street in the grass strip in front of Roach Brothers Plaza. If they determine fire flow numbers for the existing building there in case they need to do any type of upgrades. Let's see. And we'll jump on down to, I know we spoke about it a while ago, the town is required to do a vulnerability assessment. The deadline for that is coming up June 2021. We had a Zoom meeting last week with specialists from Weston and Sampson and a few of our regular members going over how to fill it out, some of the important information that's on there, and it's a lengthy process. It's a slow read, for lack of better terms there, and we're still working on that. So I know Tara and Ben, and there's a couple others there that the names are escaping me, have been helping us out with that. And we'll jump over one more thing. I'm going to talk about PFAS. Our required samples are due in April. In the past, Norton has sampled for PFAS, although the requirements were different back then. Thankfully, in the past, we had a non-detect on our samples. There have been some changes to the requirements from Mass DEP. The level now, the target level, is not to exceed 20 parts per trillion. That's PPT. Unfortunately, many of our neighboring communities have tested at or above this level and are required to implement action plans. From what I've heard, in a very short period of time that I've learned about, PFAS, where it comes from, what's involved with removing it. Steve, correct me if I'm wrong here. DEP will instruct us on how to proceed if we do have an exceedance. I would assume read and heard about in Zoom meetings. At a bare minimum, they're going to require additional sampling, which will be added to our Mass DEP approved sampling plan.
Public education, too.
Yep, public education and notification if those levels do exceed or are at their action level. Again, they'll also inform us what types of additional treatment processes that we will be required to install based on our sample results. Everything really hinges on those results. We unfortunately will anticipate that we may see an exceedance just based on the location and what similar communities around us have been seeing. Obviously, we hope for the best, but we want to plan for the worst. So I just want to make sure that is out there. I know we've talked about it and touched on it a little bit here and there. There is a significant impact, obviously, depending on if one facility or every facility comes up with a sample that's within their limits here, as far as the 20 parts per trillion. I haven't heard any definite numbers. I know Steve could probably chime in about what some of the facilities in his town are costing. It's significant. I know there are some, I lost my train of thought. Some grants that are available.
They're running out, too.
They're going quick. Hopefully the new administration may push and add some more to that. But either way, it's ultimately the responsibility of the water department to meet the DEP requirements and remove these forever chemicals that never belonged in water in the first place. But do you have any ballpark numbers on what you got over there, Steve, just so you may have a basic idea of what we're looking at?
We're building a $3 million carbon plant with carbon filters, I should say. We're not even going to be able to get our building up before we put it online, so they're going to be outside for now, and then we're going to build the building around it. But I guess from what I gather, the vessels themselves are difficult to get a hold of. So I don't know if that's going to pose an issue, and this is going to be a lot of public notification, really, more than anything. I mean, there's not much you can do. You can't get blood from a rock. I mean, Easton has every one of their wells, not just above, but some of their plants are double, more than double, and they got every single one of their plants are every single one of their pump houses are all above in PFAS. So they're struggling, but you know, there's not much you can do. It's millions and millions of dollars, so it's just public education at that point.
Right. It'll definitely take some time to implement any type of procedures that they recommend.
I think some sort of public outreach too might be a good idea for us, because a lot of people probably don't understand it, or I've gotten bad information, so it might be something we might want to delve in the future to the public to introduce some sort of pamphlet or something that some sort of flyer or something for public education.
Yeah, I agree with that misinformation part. Unfortunately, I've heard some of that as well. I have reached out to a couple people at DEP, and a few of the seminars that I went in had a little bit of conflicting information. You know, obviously they know a good idea of where it comes from and why it's there. They have different means and methods for removal. The GAC, or granular activated carbon, seems to be the most cost-effective, but there's definitely a lot of questions that remain with it. We may actually reach out to DEP and see if they have any pamphlets on that. And we want to make sure we get the correct information out to the public, as we are equally learning about this just as readily as they are.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
That's all I got for tonight, guys. I kept it short and sweet.
I like it. Let's do that.
Very good, Frank. I would have to agree. Let's move over to Weston and Sampson updates. Tara, since you were already on, let's go with Tara McManus with water side of Weston and Sampson.
Great, thank you, Luke. I'll just do a quick comment on the PFAS. There was a roundtable today that I attended with Mass DP and Mass Waterworks. The intent is to try to have one voice coming out of DEP to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And it's also very important to let everybody know right now that if you do detect the PFAS, it's not that the water department did anything wrong. This is something that's caused by human development of chemicals and contaminations that eventually do get into the water flow stream. So unfortunately, it is something that a lot of communities are having to deal with now. But it is the public education, public notification policies are actually need to be reviewed by DEP before they are issued. So if there is results above 20 parts per trillion, that would be something that we would work with directly with Mass DP on getting that information out and approved. So let's hope the one good thing is that you have 3 wells going to one plant, and you can do some blending to, if one well has a little bit higher levels than others, you can actually reduce the flow out of that one and increase the flow out of the other 2 to kind of balance it so that you can be below the MCL, maximum contaminant level. So there are some other benefits to having a treatment plant, and as Frank said, it is still a costly thing to deal with moving forward. So knock on wood, maybe you guys will luck out, and it's the surrounding neighbors that have to deal with it. But we'll go from there. So update on the treatment plant. I don't really have too much of an update from last week. They were able to, the cure time was a little over 7 days. We waited till yesterday afternoon to fill the tank. The contractor will be inspecting that tomorrow to check on the potential leakage. I know that there was some discussions of putting up an inflatable plug in one of the overflows just to make sure there wasn't any leakage between the tanks, and possibly checking in to see if the fill lines were leaking. So I'll have probably a better update, obviously, for the next meeting, but hopefully a positive update I should add too. But everything else is pretty much status quo. Frank did give you the update on 4 and 5. We're pretty much dealing with warranty issues here, and the decision to upgrade 4 now when they have the cleaning occurring. And this spring is probably the best solution, just to help with 5 and 6 as they limp along with the well cleaning. So well 5 can't be cleaned again, so we're kind of hold on strong with that. So that was pretty much it, the update on the treatment plant. I'm going to move over to wells 5 and 6 and give you an update on that if there aren't any other questions.
Yep, no, that sounds good.
Okay. So well number 6, we finished the 48-inch casing pipe. They've moved on to welding the 36-inch casing pipe, and then have installed a decent amount of it below ground. Their anticipation, actually, at this point, based on the smaller diameter, that they should be, moving pretty smoothly. Well 5 went pretty well once we went down to 36-inch, so they're anticipating about a week and a half or so worth of additional drilling needed. We got through that clay layer. It did take a little bit of time with the 48-inch. But after they wrap up the drilling, another week and a half, they'll bump right over to number 5 and start the screen installation. The screen was delivered to the site. Can't remember if I updated Frank or if I updated the whole group a couple weeks ago, but due to some weather and other issues over the country the last few months, the screen was delayed significantly longer than we would normally have anticipated. It's usually about a 3 week delivery time, and it took roughly, I think, 5 to 7 weeks at this point. So the good news is that is on site, and they will be switching right over to install the screen after they finish well 6, start the development of the well, and then the next steps are doing the 48-hour pumping test and water quality testing. So hopefully by the time that's all wrapped up, we'll have completed and ordered the new screen for number 6, and they can bump back over to number 6 and start that work. Or if it's time to clean well 4, we have some opportunity to kind of switch over to that. So things are going relatively well at this juncture, and we're moving forward. And next steps of that is DEP approval for the work, the pumping test and water quality testing. So that's probably a few more weeks out until we submit that in, but the hope is to start this project, go out to bid this summer, and start construction and have these 2 wells up and running by the end of this calendar year. So that's pretty much the update on the wells. If there are any questions on that topic, let me know.
How much of the underground pipe work was done in anticipation of the wells, or we're doing the wells first and then we bring the pipes to it?
So we actually, under the treatment plant project, we installed 2 Ts, one at each of the well sites, with the anticipated location of the future wells. And so there's really just an installation of a meter vault, a pitless adapter, and a little bit of, maybe 20, 30 feet of actual piping from the new well to the existing feed line that runs to the treatment plant. So there's not a lot of work at each site. It's more of the electrical and we're going to be reusing the existing well stations for pulling conduit and wire and sampling stations. Everything will be indoors inside those stations. So it's actually not too much work. It's more probably the ordering and delivery of all the equipment, which what we're seeing with the pandemic on top of some weather concerns over the last few months across the country. As Frank mentioned, with Texas, certainly it's been an issue. Everybody's behind. And that's the only concern we have is with delivery times at this point. But the work itself is pretty straightforward.
Very good. So by well stations, I'm assuming that you're saying the buildings will be reused.
Yeah, the wells, the new replacement wells are actually in at close proximity to the existing stations. The actual, we don't want to have any, large vaults with confined space that you have to enter every day or week to do any water quality sampling. So we're going to be piping, water sample lines and level lines and whatnot straight back into the actual existing buildings, and running the electrical feed from the existing building to the actual new well. So that'll be all buried underground, and then we have a little fences to kind of install here and there throughout that job site to kind of keep security up. But it is, the structures are relatively sound out there, and should last another 10, 20 years easily. So the intent was not to spend money on buildings and encasing the new wells. And these are slightly different styles, so very similar to well 4, where you have an existing well that you've installed a pitless adapter that runs to the well station. That's exactly what you're going to have at wells 5 and 6.
Very good. So at this point, Frank, I know either you or the staff is out there daily, or at least rather often. I suggest a thorough, whatever. If one of the buildings needs a roof or even paint or a door. I mean, I'm only stating the obvious. I'm just thinking out loud that this would be a really good time to begin the steps to replace that roof. I know they're small, but because everything else is going to be upgraded, you don't want a electric panel or something to be, in an area where somebody needs to work, access to do some building maintenance. If you have anything that is on the well operator's wish list, let's look at that and figure out if and when that needs to happen.
All right, I'll add it to the list.
And I will compliment you on. I drive by all the time. I think you're going to call it the Great Wood Station, and it's got a nice roof on it. It's painted, and it's going to sound foolish, but there's nothing better than a sewer pump station that actually looks nice and tidy and neat. I think that's a very good image to project, not only for the folks who work there, that they have a good place and a sense of pride in what they do, but for everybody in the community to see that, we're not letting the visible parts of our infrastructure lag in maintenance.
Agreed.
But that looks really good going by. I noticed that, and I keep forgetting to say that. So, well done on that one.
You guys say you're welcome?
No, that's it. I will accept a you're welcome from you. What else do you have, Jennifer?
Not too much. As Frank mentioned, we did meet last week on the American Water Infrastructure Act, the AWIA project. Did a kickoff meeting, went over some of the information needed for the risk and resiliency assessments, probably bored poor Frank and John a little bit on the background of the AWIA requirements, but we've got some information already, some feedback from them already from that meeting, so we're on our way. That's pretty much my update on water.
Excellent. Thank you for that. That being said, we'll move over to Steve Peterson with Weston and Sampson for the sewer side of things.
Excellent. Thank you, Luke. Can everyone hear me?
Loud and clear. How you doing, Steve?
Excellent. I'm doing well. Thank you. So West Main Street sewer, as we keep talking about, the only thing left is the final paving. The contractor did send some emails today. They're tentatively hoping to do the paving, or at least start it the week of April vacation. Try and get out there while school's not in session and get as much of it done as we can. So that would be the week of April 19th. That is contingent upon the asphalt plants opening up. They're not open yet, but we're anticipating that they will be by then. And also in conjunction with that, we need to meet with Mass DOT out on site to walk the corridor and get confirmation from them on the areas that will be lane width versus full width mill and overlay based on the condition of the road and the width of the trenches that have been patched So we're looking to schedule that before the end of this month to meet out there with Mass DOT and get the final scope of paving nailed down. So that's where we're at with that. Frank, I saw your email this week that the Housing Authority was ready to make their final connection. Did they actually make that connection?
You are correct. There are 2 buildings now tied into the new facility.
Okay. All right. So the Housing Authority has started, is basically connected. So there'll be more to come
Correct.
as they complete their work. Okay. So that's progress. The other thing to update people on is the project financing. We talked about it at the last meeting, and then we actually had a separate meeting with town finance personnel, the treasurer, the accountant, and the town manager to go over the plan for financing based on the fact that things are wrapping up and the SRF loan is closing with payments starting to become due in July. The first payment's being due in July. So as we've discussed, and we discussed more at the meeting, there's basically 4 pieces to the payback of the loans. There's the DHCD share, which is actually already all been received. They've been billed as the project goes on and have paid their full contribution. So that money actually helps reduce the total borrowing amount, because that's money we didn't need to borrow because we were able to pay bills with it. The other is the town share for, in consideration of all the flows from the schools that will be taken or that are being taken as part of this project. So we went over that with the finance personnel to make sure we were all on the same page and that they were ready to apply that starting this fiscal year for the 20-year length of the loan as far as that share of the costs. And then the rest of it is going to be split basically between the betterments that will be assessed and the annual payments to Norton. We confirmed that, as we discussed before with the APN, there's the annual $200,000 amount, or $100,000 is the annual amount, and then
200.
I forget which
It was,
but then
yeah, it was. You're right. It was 2, Steve.
So it started as 2, and then there's been a $10,000 per year increment. And initially, the incremental costs were being, held by the town and the Board of Selectmen for other use. And then, as part of this project, it was agreed that all the APN monies would be provided to the commission in order to be able to pay the debt on this project. And that started this past fiscal year. So this past fiscal year, it was the additional money was $50,000, and then at the end of this coming fiscal year, it'll go to $60,000, and so on and so forth. So those monies are going to be available on an annual basis to help pay down the debt. So the last piece is the betterment, and we had said we would talk about that tonight. So Frank, I see that there's an agenda item for that discussion at 6:15. Is it okay if we start talking about that now, or should we?
I think if you give us a little bit of a background and we address it again at 6:15 and do a brief review, I don't think we'll be out of line. Maybe you just give us like a little of where we've been coming up to this point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So all along on this project and all the town meeting votes and discussions and tables that were done, we've talked about trying to control the betterments on this project. There's not a lot of EDUs to handle the cost, and as we all know, this was an expensive project, getting this pipe where it needed to go. So it's going to be in the end, and we're preparing the final table, which we will have done hopefully this week for review by the commission, of the total number of EDUs on the project, total betterment units will be assessed. It's going to be between 100 and 105 units. The unit assessment cost
Steve,
we've already
Steve,
talked
if
about
I may,
being in the range. What's that?
if I may, Steve, for a second, for the folks at home or somebody who tunes in later, an EDU is what, an equivalent dwelling unit?
Correct. Yep. Yeah, and that's the betterment method that is used here. Every unit is equated to a typical flow of a single-family residential home. So, so every single-family residential home is assessed one EDU, and then, commercial properties are assessed EDUs based on their actual water use records, and then, multifamily housing is assessed accordingly. A two-family home is 2 EDUs, and so on. So that's what the EDU is. And so what we need to do is establish the price per EDU, which is the price that a single-family home will be assessed for a betterment. And we've always talked about it as being between $15,000 and $16,000, and recently we've been using the $16,000 number. Basically, for some background on where you can come up with that $16,000 number, if you look at the last betterments assessed in the Winnicott area, that was in 2003, and that was $11,183. And if you applied a 2% increase per year from then until now, that is basically exactly $16,000. So it just puts some context on it. And that is what we are recommending that the commission use as the betterment unit value, and that's the number that will work in the formulas that we're using in terms of making sure that the monies collected from the 4 different sources will cover the cost of the project.
And so one more time, Steve, if I may, on the actual betterment, is that the new rate for sewer tie-ins in town? Is because what I remember is each sewer tie-ins, even on other projects, am I correct in thinking that, let's say somebody ties in a new place over in Reservoir Street, is the tie-in at Reservoir Street now that most recent project cost, or is it the tie-in fee for the Reservoir Street project?
It's current.
So
it's based on pretty much the 15
connection fees. So as properties connect to the sewer, they pay the connection fee, which is tied to your most recent assessment. So when we establish the new assessment, is my understanding that will affect the connection fee, current connection fee.
Are we correct in that, Rose?
Yes. The current tie-ins, when it's the after effect and not part of the original project, is based on gallons per bedroom, and the average one is about 15.5.
Very good. Thank you. And by the way, it's good to have access to you again. I appreciate your attendance.
No problem.
It's been a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right, everyone?
All right, Wiggin.
I'd like to say I miss it, but I can't say it with a straight face.
Very good.
Do you realize we can't see your face, Rose?
Very good. Back to
Which
Steve,
is also
please.
sad. Yeah. I'm glad to hear Rose is on the line. Because I did want to. So one thing we'll have to do going forward is once we establish what the betterment unit price is going to be and confirm the units, then we need to get the process going. I think it starts with the assessors. Rose, is that your recollection?
Yeah, it's basically a form that I have to fill out in coordination with the assessors to make sure I'm doing it right. And then as long as she's in the loop and knows what's going on, I get to record it at the registry of deeds, and then she does her thing.
Okay. So we'll continue to coordinate with you on that process. going forward. So I think
So that's on every property?
Yeah.
yes.
Ah,
We'll
very
prepare
nice.
The table. It's a property by property listing, and how many EDUs are attached to each of the fronted properties. And I assume that's the list, Rose, that you'll need, that table to provide to the assessors.
Correct.
So,
Excellent. And if I may at this point, Steve and or Rose, if I'm going to say each or both of you would please CC the health department on these EDUs, because in the past I've had experience where a subject property, we'll say, was connected to the sewer, and the septic tank was not properly decommissioned. And once the septic tank is unused, it becomes a real hazard for many reasons, but we don't have to go into that. It just, we need to keep the Board of Health up to speed on each EDU, the locations, and the status of their connections. And however you both see that as communicated is going to be critical going forward. So I don't know if there's a play-by-play where they pull a sewer permit for an example EDU of whatever, I don't know the numbers, but we'll call it 300 West Main Street, and then, once the permit gets applied for, an email gets sent off to the Board of Health. I don't know how to generate that chain of communication, but as each and every one of us are, I'm just going to say temporary here, going forward, long range, I really want to leave something in place whereby we have an excellent mechanism to include other members of our community that oversee certain aspects which will change with the connection to the sewer.
No, we can absolutely take care of that, Luke.
Very nice.
And this will all occur in conjunction with letters that will be sent out to the residents, that they, formal letters notifying them that they can now connect to the sewer.
Yep. That's always been a source of confusion. I'm going to call it white lies and forgetfulness. The folks who sell property aren't really that forthcoming in their obligations, or it's crazy. So obviously the betterment and lien will be in place, and each part, I don't know how to really lock it down, but I think the betterment is lien is the way, and obviously they'll get their letters. Do we go through the expense of a return receipt requested letter? Is that? I'm just trying to, we all know the situations we're talking about. There's a small group of people who will call it slip through the cracks, but we know there weren't any cracks anybody slipped through.
And I think the assessors will dictate part of this process, won't they, Rose?
Yeah, because they're gonna, between the assessor and the tax collector, they generate the letter that explains, well, not explains the betterment, but initiates the betterment, and their response is yes, they'll pay it up front in one lump sum, or they'll defer it to their taxes. So there is nobody there that can just say, oh, well, I didn't know.
Okay, good. All right.
Stop paying their betterments immediately.
All right. Thank you. So this is a little different scenario than the one that comes to my mind.
Right. And in addition, as far as trying to monitor the installations between us and the Board of Health, again, they still have a 5-year period to tie in. And I don't know enough legally about what happens when you sell the property. Right now, our bylaw doesn't address if they sell the property, they must tie in. Because if it's not failing, I'm assuming we can't make them. But there's got to be a somewhere that protects the new buyer.
Right. It's just that's the scenario that we're up against, and I guess if I think it all the way through, if it's a betterment on the property taxes and a diligent attorney does a municipal lien certificate, I guess the question could pose the tax collector, accountant, or those up at town hall, how is that carried through in a municipal lien certificate? That, I guess, would be the critical thing. Because every closing will have a municipal lien certificate, but somebody with a septic system may not necessarily come over to the water department and specifically ask.
Well, the municipal lien certificate is generated by the closing attorney, so that's step one. The problem is that when these people have their house up for sale, the municipal lien certificate is like the last step. It's done right before closing. So the person
Right.
who has put an offer in, it's been accepted. They go through all their process to get the financing and everything. If the realtors and the homeowners aren't upfront and honest about all this stuff, one, whether they know or not, will be one of the battle cries.
Yep.
But if everybody doesn't do their due diligence, it's going to be the new owner's back that this all falls on, which is very unfair.
Right.
So I don't know how to get around that other than when the municipal lien certificates come in to actually make a phone call to these attorneys and get the realtors involved at that point. But again, that's like at the end of the financial obligation. So.
Right. Well, if they're...
And again, we're all temporary. This will have to be followed up by the new people coming in.
Correct. I think, though, if it's on the deed, if the betterment is attached to the deed, and these all are, I mean, it's gonna come up at the closing in one of the, oh my, I didn't know about that days, but it somebody with, I guess there's no way around it at the closing because it's on the deed.
Right.
So if somebody doesn't disclose it, it gets brought up at least at the very worst at the closing. Hopefully everybody's upfront and better than that, but...
Right. And again, you could be talking 4 or 5 years down the road.
Right. That's what I'm trying to... I don't know how to better accommodate what has to happen, but I think the lien is certainly a way to tie it to the deed.
Right.
And now it being 18, I think we're well into the discussion of the betterments and whatnot. And I don't know that we necessarily have to arrive at a number. I feel like it's going to lean towards 16,000. But if you would take another peek at it over the next 2 weeks, Steve, maybe we'll push it forward to the next meeting on I think it's the 23rd to take a vote.
Yeah, that's reasonable. Yep.
And just make sure that going forward that's going to be sufficient to take care of what we have, and then we'll look at it in 2 weeks.
That sounds good. All right. So,
Do you have any other sewer items?
I do not have anything else to update you on since the last meeting. No.
Very good. I think that being said, I don't know if we have any action items or marching orders that we need from this discussion. Anybody come up with any requests, suggestions, or statements? I think we're going to, we have the next meeting at the 23rd. I would, as a precautionary note, like to move the meeting of the 23rd to 6 p.m. I have a time crunch in the afternoon on the 23rd, so I think I will be a planner and put it at 6 p.m. so I don't show up half an hour late. 6 p.m. on the 23rd will be our next meeting, and Mr. Bishop, if you could, please make your favorite motion.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that. Thank you all very much.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Good night, everyone. Good night.